What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 2 of Kings of Bass Live with KVD. I am not KVD. My name is Tom. I work for Strike King and Lose. I'm just the guy that's here to tee up the questions, drive the conversation here so that we all learn a little bit more about bass fishing. And that's what we do here on Kings of Bass Live with KVD. We talk with some of the best pros in the world about bass fishing so that we all learn a little bit more and hopefully catch a few more bass because of what we're hearing tonight. So the last time, just to recap, episode 1 of Kings of Bass Live, there was a feeling of anticipation in the air. The Elite Series, the Bass Pro Tour was just getting ready to kick off. It was still cold, but now we're knocking the ice off our rods. Fast forward to today, and we've had 2 Elite Series events, 2 Bass Pro Tour events, and there's a warming trend in most parts of the country. So it's a great time to be alive. There was a point last week where there was a Major League Fishing event and an Elite Series event going on at the same time. And for us, the viewer, it doesn't get much better than that. It was like March Madness. We were able to watch the top 2 circuits going at it, flip back and forth, have them both on at the same time. I was doing them both pretty much the entire time I was working. And I know that my boss is watching this, but we were all doing that around the office. So it's just a great time to be hosting Kings of Bass Live. And before we bring on KVD, I do want to tell you guys what we've got in store for you tonight. We've got a great show planned. We're going to be talking to the youngest Bass Pro Tour angler ever. And he's already off to a hot start. Cole Floyd. He just had a top 10 in his second tournament ever on Lake Fork. Then we're going to be talking to Greg Hackney. You all know who Greg Hackney is. He has pretty much defined the best way that you can throw a jig. So we're going to be talking about pre-spawn fishing. We're going to be recapping the Major League Fishing Stage 2 event on Lake Fork with Kevin VanDam, who had a top 20 finish there, and with Cole, who had a top 10. Then we're going to be jumping into previewing the Bassmaster Classic with Greg Hackney and a whole bunch of other great stuff in a pre-spawn context. We're going to be talking about jig fishing, crankbaits, spinnerbaits, pre-spawn. Real quick, I do want to mention the giveaways because we changed it up a little bit from the first show to this one. Let me pull up this little graphic that I actually put together just for you guys. This is how you enter. If you're watching from YouTube, all you got to do is subscribe to Kings of Bass TV. Kings of Bass TV, if you haven't checked it out, it's got Pro Team Journal. It's got Kings of Bass, pretty much redefining the standard on digital content for bass fishing on YouTube. If you're watching from Facebook, make sure you're following the Strike King page, the Lose page, and KVD's page. And from that point, once you've done that, all you got to do is comment your favorite Strike King lure or ask a bass fishing question in the comments. This is a show where we want you to help us drive the conversation by asking questions. So there's a chance that you're going to have your question right here tonight, and we're going to draw the winners at the end of the show. What's on the line? The first giveaway is for a Lose Signature Series, courtesy of Greg Hackney himself, designed by that man. The perfect jig fishing rod. It's a 7.6 pitching rod, part of the Lose Signature Series, newly released in 2021. And then giveaway number 2, a Strike King Mega Bait Bundle. I've got it sitting right next to me. It's basically full of a bunch of KVD and Hackney baits, Hack Attack jigs, heavy cover swim jigs, 1.5s, 1.5 deeps, Pro Series, XDs, all the good stuff. So that's what we've got in store for you here tonight. So enough hearing from me. I want to bring on the guy whose show this is. KVD, Kevin VanDam, welcome to your show.
Hey, Tommy boy, how are we doing tonight?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good because I'm talking to you. We're back for episode 2, so they let me do this again.
Man, that was a long-winded intro there, man.
I'm sorry about that. Wow, 6.5 minutes.
Yeah.
I talk more than I should, I know, but hey,
No.
we're here.
No, well, you're at the home office. I'm at Smith Lake in the house that that I've rented with some of my buddies here. So we're kind of a makeshift studio this week. But man, first day of practice here this week for the Bass Pro Tour event here. And what a change. You know, we've had a lot of crazy conditions the first two events. This one, big flood before we got here. I think the lake has come up like 6 feet over the last few days. It came up over a foot last night. So this lake is a different Smith Lake right now, man. It is dirty. It's high. It's got a lot of floating debris, and it's still coming up. So who knows? But the sun was shining, and you know the water's in the low 50s. It's supposed to be nice all week. We don't have any ice in the forecast. We don't have any, you know, giant cold fronts or anything like that. So not only should it be a good week for us, but it should be a great week for the Classic, for the guys at Hartwell too. I got a lot of my buddies there fishing this week too. So we got a lot to cover tonight, man.
Oh, absolutely. And when you talk about Smith Lake and you compare that to Lake Fork, I've got a feeling there's going to be a little bit different variable minimum there on the size of bass that counts. Kind of tell us about what those two lakes kind of present to anglers, because obviously they're very different.
Yeah. So, you know, Smith Lake is, you know, I would say it's primarily, it's a spotted bass lake here. And now there's some big spots in here, but there's definitely, you know, nothing like Lake Fork. We're not going to see that size of fish at all, but there's a lot of numbers here. The key is, though, is with these conditions, with this water being high and with the water being dirty, a lot of those fish that would roam around out in deeper water, suspend, you know, a lot of guys would have been drop shot and fishing swim baits, you know, real deep spy baits, things like that over some of this real deep timber, and using a lot of forward facing sonar and looking for these fish way out, you know, and, you know, 50, 75 foot of water. With it getting dirty, it'll put a lot more fish on the bank. It'll also make the largemouth show up. You know, those largemouth don't live as deep anyways. And with this dirty water, it's going to put them up in that flooded cover, especially with this warming trend. And that's always the key on a lake like this is, you know, do you target smallmouth or I mean, do you target the largemouth or do you target the spotted bass? The spotted bass remind me of smallmouth, how aggressive they are. And it's going to be the same at Lake Hartwell this week. You know, there's a good population of both there. And there'll be guys that target both, but we'll get the whole heads up from Greg when we get him on here in a little bit on what's going on there. But I think this, you know, this week here is going to be a real challenge. It's way different than what these fish are used to. They're used to clear water, and when it gets dirty like this real fast, and it's a, you know, it's definitely a shock to their system, and you definitely got to be in the right area. So, you know, my practice today was not outstanding by any means. You know, I caught, you know, quite a few. I didn't catch anything. The biggest fish I caught was about a 3-pound spot, but I caught some nice ones. And we do have a pound 1/8 minimum this week here. So I think that's a pretty good standard for, you know, for this lake here. There's just so many, there's so many small ones in here that the 1/8 is a good representative of a better than average fish here for sure.
Yeah, I think that that change is going to shake things up from the last time that the Bass Pro Tour was at Smith Lake, because I think Shin Fukai set some sort of record there where it was like he had like 100 fish for like 100 pounds. So I think that having the 1/8, there's obviously a big difference between a 1 pounder and even a 1.5 pound spot. How do the blueback herring play a factor here? Are they chasing them around? What's the impact?
Yeah. So blueback herring got into this lake a handful of years ago, and it totally changed the dynamic of it because they're real nomadic. You know, they're very different than shad in the fact that they live up higher in the water column, and they definitely, you know, those spots focus on them, and they've gotten a lot bigger because of them as well in this system. So it does change it, but there still is a lot of shad in here as well. And I think, you know, that is the primary forage for these fish. When it gets dirty like this, they're not going to be locked on the bottom looking for crayfish or anything. They're going to be focused on shad, or if you can find those herring, for sure. It's not the herring aren't as prolific as they are in Lake Hartwell or Lake Murray. You know, it's those lakes in the southeast, but they're definitely here. They're bigger. You know, they're bigger in average size, and that's why they like them so much. Is you know, it's a pretty solid meal for them. But it does make these fish just constantly move from day to day With these conditions here, it may change things up a little bit just because, again, that water's gotten so dirty, and it should put a lot more fish up on the bank eventually when it stabilizes out. But there's so much fresh water still coming in here that it's still changing by the minute. I mean, even today it wasn't raining, but there's just water pouring in waterfalls and the little side pockets and things like that. And the major tributaries are really dirty. You can't see 3 inches down at all. And that's not normal for this lake. This is normally a clear lake. And it'll have a little color in some of the very upper ends of the tributaries, but now it's really, pretty dirty from end to end. It was a huge amount of rain that they got over the last 3-4 days here.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see how that shakes out. It's pretty much impossible to set some sort of over under on what it will take to reach the knockout round because of what you said, it being so muddy, and the fact that you can go after largemouth or spotted bass. So always really interesting whenever the Bass Pro Tour goes to Smith Lake. We've got Cole backstage. Before we bring him on, I want to talk about your strategy at Lake Fork because it was very different from Cole's. And if I pull up the score tracker here, this is from day one. And it seems like you had a little bit of a consistent pattern figured out, possibly, maybe a little consistent, considering they were all on a shallow crankbait. Which crankbait were you throwing?
Most of the fish that I caught the whole week were on a KVD 1.5 square bill. I saw them practice right off the bat. The first bite that I got actually was on a spinnerbait in practice, and a whole bunch of shad flew out of the water with it, and 3 or 4 bass were chasing the one bass that I had hooked, and it was in kind of in a back of a creek in the center of a ditch. And I just thought that a crankbait, a square bill especially, was going to be a lot more efficient for that 4 to 8 foot zone that these fish were set up in than a spinnerbait. So I switched back and forth between that River Shiner 1.5, and then I also threw that Chick Magnet, that new flat-sided bait as well. It runs about that same depth, just because these fish were so focused on the shad, just on my signature cranking system. And in the end, on the knockout round, it got so cold in the area that I was at. I just really couldn't make them react real well to it. I got a few bites on it, caught one on a jig, and I just never really got dialed in to a group of fish. And they move there a lot too, just because the same thing, with the water temperature dropping and those shad moving in and out of those creeks like that, the bass are definitely going to follow them a little bit. So, and you had to fish real slow, to catch them. So, and make repeated casts. That was the real key for me, is just, the lake being low like it was, it made the stump stick out, and you just had to really, target those fish. And, I was using my live sonar as well, and it just it didn't work out in the end. The first couple of days were good. I think I went through the qualifying round in second place, and then just that huge front hit us there for the knockout round. That was disappointing, but still, solid week.
Well, from what I can tell from watching MLF now, it seems like everybody was throwing fire craw patterns, and you were going with more of a shad pattern. Were you trying the fire crawl out? I mean, how did you make that determination? With that
I did. I threw, red to begin with, and it just, the water was a little bit clean where I was at, and the fire crawl was just, to me, a little bit loud, and they were eating shad, so I was just giving them what they wanted. And in practice, it was good. I don't think it really was the color. The location was more critical than anything else. You could probably make them react to either ones, but once I saw them focused on shad where I was at, I started kind of using those shad patterns.
Very good. We're going to bring on the youngest angler ever on the Bass Pro Tour, and just 2 events in, he's already got a top 10. He's Cole Floyd. Here he is. What's up, Cole?
What's up? How you guys doing?
Hey, Cole. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good.
So I met Cole Yeah, I met Cole last year for the first time. We were at a writers event. He actually came up to Northern Michigan to my house, and we were smallmouth fishing up there. And it was a pretty interesting week. We had some changing conditions there, but we had a pretty good time, didn't we, Cole?
Oh yeah, yeah, it was pretty fun. Catching one with spinnerbait, and that was a blast. There's some giants up there for sure.
Yeah, we caught some big ones in that deal there. But boy, you had I know the start to your season didn't really go, but that first tournament, man, at Dearborn was a rough one. And what's interesting is the first morning of the tournament, the first day, I run all the way up the river into this creek, and the first guy that I see is you in the same area that I was fishing there. And
Yeah,
I know it didn't work out, but God, as tough as it was there, it was a good area. I'm sure
yeah,
I
for
was,
sure.
for me, I didn't find a whole lot in practice, and that area up
Right.
there, I had a few bites in, so that's where I had confidence in. So I just kind of grounded, tried to make it happen, and got lucky, really.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I got so dialed in on something, and I kind of live or die by it, And I love flipping. And that day of practice, it was nasty. I went up there kind of late in the day, and I had like 6 to 8 bites, fairly quick. And I set the hook on one of them. It was a good one. And I was like, all right, and it just I caught one right off the bat that morning, and it was just I never did adjust. I saw I saw you a good bit. Fishing the mouths of them. How them big spawning pockets, and the mouths of them drains. Where they dumped into the river part. But I just never adjusted to that, and I don't know. I'll live and learn for sure.
It's tough, I mean, in a deal like that, one or two bites is the difference in having a good day and a bad day, as brutal as those conditions were. But, fast forward to last week, you turned your season around pretty quick there. So, give us a little breakdown of what you were doing there at Fork, the pattern and what you were catching them on.
So, I the lake being low like that, I targeted road beds. I fished a lot of road beds, and I just covered water with a magnet, a striking chick magnet, and I threw a rattle trap a good bit, red eye shad, and I just covered water, and I found a couple areas like, I had one where the bridge, it was an underwater bridge, and I had a group of fish found there, and that kind of, for some reason, I just never did get that school to fire. I caught a couple here and there, but in practice, I had a bunch of bites. Just bang, 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 and I had another one, another road bed. I caught some big ones off of, but after besides that, I was targeting, like smaller little creek arms, and it seemed like to me, like halfway back and all the way to the back was the best for me. So obviously, I was kind of targeting that channel swing stuff, and it seemed like anytime you can find them trees and the on the edge of the channel swing or in the channel swing, them root wads were pretty. I mean, that's kind of what you want to target, and I know you know that, but it just I don't know. That's what I targeted, anyways. It seemed like halfway back and on back was best for me, and I was
Yeah.
throwing a big spinnerbait tour grade. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I started on them in practice with a spinnerbait, and then I switched to a crankbait. But it was the same for me. I was kind of catching them further back, and those fish there really focus on the channels and those ditches. On a bottom contour change, and you find that one tree that sets up on that, there might be a perfect 20-yard stretch that a whole bunch of them are on. And then the rest of it's no good. And also, for me, I was really looking at my Mega 360 and seeing a lot of these. So like you'd see the pole timber, but if you could find a broken top laying there at the base of one of those things, that was everything for me. I had several trees that I caught, you could go back by them every hour and catch one off of the same tree again,
Right.
finding something
same.
horizontal.
Yeah, that was kind of the same. there's like them few trees like you could about, you could make a loop and come back and hit that tree, and there'd be another one replenished, and it was pretty wild how that worked. But it yeah, it was definitely, the last day it didn't really pan out. It was kind of weird, I never really did. I try to adjust and make some moves, and I just couldn't get nothing going my way. And them fish, it's amazing, So me, Sprague, and Andy Morgan and Knockout Round, we started within 100 yards apart from each other. So I knew there was some pressure in there, and it just, man, that cold there for a couple of days, it moved them fish out of there, and I think they're more in the mouth, and I didn't really adjust to it, and yeah, it just didn't. Live from your mistakes, but it was definitely a fun tournament. I mean, you can't shoot. That's one of the best lakes in the country. I mean, it's unreal how big them fish are.
Yeah, we hit it, really probably a little bit early, but because the lake was so low, it made it really easy to read with the timber the way that it was. If that timber was all under the water, it would have been a lot harder for us to go. But I mean, people at home don't understand just how brutal and how cold it was, for that. At the beginning it was okay, but man, we had back-to-back cold fronts there for the knockout round. I mean, it was, my boat was a sheet of ice, everything, the engine, your rain suit, my cameraman, my official, and, there was a day off that they canceled the next day for the championship round, and it was still that cold again. So, I mean, those Florida strain fish just do not react well to those extreme cold fronts. I can't imagine how much fun it would have been to be there if we would have had a stable week of weather like what we've got in the forecast here this week is a total turnaround. So, and we've got plenty of water here. It's the exact opposite of Lake Fork.
Yeah, I know, man. It definitely made it, being that water being Lake Fork helped a lot, being able to read it. But if it would have just stayed warm, man, if it would, like you said, if it would have stayed out and stayed warm, it would have been a real fun event for us, shallow guys up there, doing our thing. But it was pretty fun though.
Yeah, I've been fishing Lake Fork probably longer than you've been alive, and
gosh, that's the first time I've been there.
It back in the day, it had hydrilla from one end to the other, and it's just unbelievable. But it's always been outstanding. And when you hit it, those fish are just so fat. You saw the weights of them. I mean, just for the time of the year, you just can't. There's not a lake in the country that has a better average quality fish than Lake Fork. And wintertime's a tough time, but boy, it's a special. If you want to catch a big fish, if somebody's looking for a place to go to catch a fish of a lifetime, that is the place, man. It is. Yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah, for sure. Then it was amazing how many. Every time someone would catch one, it's like it was always like a 7. There's so many 7-pounders in there. It's just 4 to 7 pound fish. It's unreal. It's chock full of them. It was a blast.
Guys, talking about spinnerbaits pre-spawn, there's so many different ways, obviously, sizes, weights to spinnerbaits. Is there a particular set of conditions that you're looking for pre-spawn? And how do you know when to transition your retrieve?
Yeah, I mean, in that deal, it was kind of funny. I was throwing a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, and I was catching some of them fish in 1.5 2 foot of water, but it was so windy that that one day, and it was really hard. It's really hard to throw really fire a light spinnerbait in that wind. Well, I'm not like Kevin, he can fire anything in the wind, but just to me it seemed like that worked out for me. I mean, my retrieve, it was a pretty slow retrieve, but I was throwing big line, 20-pound line, and it just seemed like it worked out for me. But targeting them channel swings was pretty key. I mean, anywhere where they would come to the bank and leave, that was a key thing, and just rolling that spinnerbait around. The conditions just set up good for it. In that event, I was in some good stained water, and um, you know, that's kind of what I targeted.
Yeah, slow rolling a spinnerbait is a classic pre-spawn presentation. I've been doing it for my whole. It's one of my favorite baits. I love it. Anytime you got cover like that, especially timber laydowns, brush, it's just efficient bait to fish. I mean, you can't move it fast, but with the Lake Master chip, that I was using, it made it really easy to zoom in on those key areas. And I threw a spinnerbait, on and off in the tournament, but they really didn't want it, especially that first day. For me, the first qualifying round, it was slick, calm, and where I was at, there was no wind back in there, and it got sunny, and those fish suspended around that stuff, and they really wanted that crankbait. They would just react to it. I caught a lot of them like here in the chin and stuff, where they were just kind of swatting at it. They weren't aggressively eating it. They were just, reacting to it. And I couldn't get them to hit a spinnerbait, early on. So I kind of got locked into it pretty early on. And in the end, it bit me on that knockout round, but it bit a lot of people that day. That was just a tough day. If you got in the right little area, you can, it's there. It was way more important to be in the right area, and what you're throwing didn't matter as much, because there were some guys catching them with jigs. There was guys, catching them with crankbaits. There was guys catching them jerking. The water was just a little too dirty for me. I know people are going to say, well, why weren't you jerking? There was a ton of guys catching them with a jerk bait. Heck, my nephew was catching them with my jerk. I had to give him jerk baits,
Yeah.
But where I was at, the water was really dirtier than what I liked. And there was too much wood there too. It wasn't deep enough, and you were hung up constantly with it. So, spinnerbait or a crankbait was really the only choice for me.
So Kevin, you weren't grinding it like against stumps, stuff like that. You were actually working it higher up in the water column.
Yeah, I did both. When it warmed up, those fish moved shallower, and at the end of the first day, I caught some in a foot of water, but most of the fish that I was catching were out there a little bit deeper. A lot of them were in 4 to 8 foot. I caught some as deep as 10, just coming up and getting that bait, but there was wood laying down there on the bottom. There'd be a top down there, and I'd just be fishing it over the top of it. And again, I experimented back and forth with, threw a jig in there. I threw a spinnerbait and different things, but just time and time again. And I got so much confidence in that square bill. It's just such a great bait. And it runs a little deeper than most people think. One thing, normally you throw heavy line on a square bill there just so I could get the depth out of it. I started with 12, and man, I caught a couple of like really big ones in practice. I had a couple of 8-pounders, and I'm like, gosh, I need to try to go up to 14. But, if you throw 17 or 20, I just couldn't get the bait deep enough. So, I had a couple rods rigged with 12 and a couple with 14, and I just rolled that. And as cold as the water was, as long as you didn't horse them too bad, you could get them in pretty good. It'd have been a lot better to throw that spinnerbait on 20 though. That's fun when you set the hook on a big one with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that day it was real calm and slicked off. I caught them all that day. I caught them flipping. I was just going in like little steep pockets, and later in the day it was really good. I went in a couple of pockets. I had a bunch of bites, but it's like I lost a lot of fish, and I don't know if it was just they're just sliding up and they're just biting funny for me, but
Yeah.
it's just part of it. But it was just a weird bite. I don't know.
That full moon, they're always thinking about even though they weren't spawning, they're thinking about the spawn. They were pulled up with that in mind, and that's why they were swatting at that, even swatting at my crankbait like that. But with 2 treble hooks, you got a better chance, But yeah, I saw the same thing. I had, the second day, I had a lot of bites of the qualifying round that I didn't catch. I probably had 8 or 10 on a crankbait that I hooked or lost or just hit it that I didn't get because they were just slapping at it like that, just reacting but not eating it. So you weren't the only one.
Yeah, I could tell. That many bites, I could tell something was kind of weird. But
The power of
yeah,
that moon.
yeah, oh yeah,
So, well, man, appreciate you coming on tonight.
yeah,
We're here at Smith Lake this week for the Bass Pro Tour. It's totally different conditions, but hopefully
yeah,
we have another good week, just like last week there.
yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it. So the conditions are, for me, anyways. I kind of like how they are. I'm a shallow water guy, so at least got some water moving, got some stain into it. So it's look
There's
forward to
definitely
it.
some dirty water, and there's definitely stuff in the water to flip here. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not like the Smith Lake that you normally see for sure. Totally different. So, it should be
right.
a good week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Cole, before you get out of here, I've got to ask, man. You seem like a pretty even keel, chill guy, pretty much all the time. I remember hearing your name because you were winning BFLs when you were still in college. Obviously, doing really well on the college level as well when you're at Bethel. Was there a little bit of an intimidation factor when you hit that hot foot on day one at Lake D'Arbonne and KVD's fishing with you and a whole bunch of other guys are right next to you on that blast off? I mean, what was that like mentally during that tournament?
Yeah, to be at this level, it's pretty cool. I've looked up to. Heck, I've gotten pictures with Kevin. When I was a little kid, I got them. I still got them pictures, and it's pretty cool to be here. And see all these guys that I've looked up to, and it's pretty awesome. It's pretty darn sweet.
Very cool. Well, one question
It,
that we ask everybody, if there's one lake that you could pick this time of year, and you had to fish that same lake this time of year for the rest of your life, what is that lake and why?
uh, I lived on Kentucky Lake for 5 years, and the conditions there. If there's moving water there, I'd probably have to go with that lake. I mean, I've cut my teeth there for the last few years, and I learned a lot. Living there, and it's a pretty special place to me for sure. I would say Kentucky Lake.
Awesome.
Good
Well,
choice.
good.
Yeah, I love that place. Even though it's kind of down in the slumps right now. It's going through a tough time right now, and it'll come back. These lakes go through
Yeah.
cycles, but um,
It's still pretty good.
it's still good. Yeah, like right now, I mean, I'd love to be there right now. Anytime this time of year when we got these big rains and stuff, and that water would they'll start generating a bunch of water. I'd crush them on a 8.0, a 4.0, and a red eye shad. I mean, that was my go-to. So I'll throw a chick magnet here and there, but it's hard to beat because you just find them grouped up and you can catch them every cast.
Very cool. Well, man, we appreciate you being here. Best of luck at Smith Lake, and we'll talk to you hopefully very soon on King's Bass Live, man.
Yep. All right, man. I appreciate you guys having me on here.
Good luck this week.
Thank you. You too.
Kevin, how long did it take you to get a top 10 when you started on the top professional tour? Also, how old were you?
Man, I was in my early 20s, and I think I did my first tournament. Actually, yeah. Different times, though. He's not intimidated. Cole's a good. I bet. I got to spend a little time with him last year at that writers event, and definitely he's got a lot of experience. He's pretty laid back, pretty mellow, and he knows what his strengths are, and that's what you have to do out here. Is you've got to fish the conditions and what you got confidence in, and there's the epitome of that is this next guy we're going to bring on here in just a second. There's a guy that definitely fishes his style anywhere you go, no matter what type of lake it is.
Absolutely. Well, I was also at that writers conference, and one thing to tell you a story that you probably haven't heard, when you pulled up beside Cole, Ronnie Moore, and I, and you were telling us, hey, they're hitting spinnerbaits, and you literally pulled out your tackle box, started pulling out spinnerbaits and throwing them into our boat, telling us exactly what we needed to throw. I tied on the spinnerbait. Cole said, nah, man, I've got him figured out deep. So he decided he was going to do his own thing. And I was like, wow, this guy Kevin just pulled up and told him exactly what to throw, and he didn't do it. Now, we didn't catch anything after that, but the confidence there, like you were saying. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Hackney, right after this.
I guess that's the cool thing about this bait that we're throwing. It has stood the test of time. It's been around forever. You know, wouldn't the first Bassmaster Classic was won on a spinnerbait. More conditions. Well, you know, we're here in North Texas. We're getting ready. Strike King's got a new spinnerbait out. It's the tour grade spinnerbait. We're just here at a perfect time. You know, we got a big front coming through, fixing to hit this week. You know, fish are post-spawn, and I'm here with 2020 Angler of the Year, Clark Wendlandt.
You know, the thing about it is, Greg, when we looked at what the situation was going to be, we thought that with the weather coming in, we thought spinnerbait, I mean, that's like a no-brainer. And then Strike King just happened to have this new spinnerbait, so it was like a perfect storm for us. We got the bait in our hand, and heck, we couldn't put it down.
All right, guys, we're back. What you just saw was a preview of Pro Team Journal. That episode with Clark and with Mr. Hackney is going to be released on April 12th. And they're going to be talking about spinnerbaiting. Obviously, a very relevant topic to what we're talking about tonight. But now we're going to bring on Greg Hackney, the best damn man in the land with a jig in his hand, from Gonzales, Louisiana. Welcome to Kings of Bass Live, Greg.
Hey.
There he is.
It's good to be here.
It's good to have you, man. So we just showed a promo for Pro Team Journal, and I think you've got Brandon there who was on that shoot. And I heard that the weather conditions weren't exactly ideal. How was that shoot?
You know, it actually was perfect for a spinnerbait trip. I mean, it was pouring down rain. It was warm. Wind was blowing. And we always like to bring Brandon in on any trips that the weather's bad. He's our go-to guy during bad weather.
Well, he's from Michigan, so he knows. I've had him in a bunch of bad deals too. So this week you're down at Lake Hartwell for the Bassmaster Classic, man. Big week there. I know you've had a pre-practice time. You got to be pretty fired up though to, you know, even though it might not be the perfect lake you would pick for your style, it's still an awesome lake. You know, it's what I love about it is it's so big that you can move around, you know, you can get away from people, and it's got, you know, a good population of both largemouth and spot. So, you know, give everybody a little heads up of what the lake looks like right now, the conditions there, you know, how you think it's going to kind of set up this week.
You know, one thing that was different from the last time we were here for the Classic was there was a lot of flooded cover in the water. And I suppose the lake has been full for so long, all that stuff is rotted and gone. And it's just completely full of water and really, really clear water. Like the majority of the lake is clear. You know, there is a handful of areas in the lake that historically are dirty, and they are dirty now. But, you know, what I consider the best part of the lake is, you know, that strip really from the mouths of those rivers to the dam. It's clear. You know, it's really, you probably got, you know, 5, 6, 7 feet of visibility in it. We had a really good pre-practice period in that we had some weather, we had some wind, and this lake is a nasty weather lake. You know, it kind of reminds me of fishing like Table Rock, somewhere in the Ozarks, where when you get bad conditions, fishing's really good. And we actually, if you look at the conditions we're going to have during the Classic, it's probably, to me, the worst conditions we could have. It's going to be 70 degrees, sunny, and like very little wind. And I would think, honestly, that will keep the weights down some. The lake is in really good shape, has a lot of big fish in it, has a lot of big spotted bass and largemouth. But the conditions that we're going to have are just not really the greatest for catching big stringers of fish on this body of water.
Yeah, it's I know that you probably are not going to have a drop shot or a Nico rig tied on.
You might be surprised.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the cool things is now with all this live coverage, fans get to see everything. So, and you'll probably have a camera with you to start off with. So I would guess that, you're going to be doing what Greg Hackney does to some degree. You have to, you got to. Confidence is so important. You got to fish your strengths. And, I know your style, we know how each other fishes a lot. And what's amazing to me is guys like yourself can, to some degree, you can always make that work. You can get them to bite a jig when I wouldn't get them to bite a jig for sure.
I'm kind of hoping honestly in that I am, rigged up to power fish and to finesse fish, whichever, but I hope that we'll get just enough weather that I can mix a little bit of power fishing in, or definitely like one of the 3 days we'll get those conditions right where a man can power fish, because this is a really, really good lake and it's got a lot of big fish in it. But it just needs a little bit of weather to make all that gel, especially this year with the water so clear. And, it's a funny thing. I practiced on a place yesterday. I think it's where you started the last Bassmaster Classic that I fished here. But you weren't here, so I had free roam of all that area.
Yeah. No, it's when it was, I fished, gosh, a couple of them there. The one that Elton Jones won, that was pretty cold, and man, it set up to be the way I like it. I was catching them deep cranking. And the last time we were there, same thing. It was cold in practice, and then it got really warm, and there was all that flooded cover, and it changed so fast. I got locked into that deep bite, and I thought I was going to have a chance to win. But for me, I need those. I need those type of conditions where the strike zone gets a little bigger, and those fish will chase a moving bait, because it's such a big place, and there's so many points. It's so expansive that it's hard to, it's hard to cover all that water. Now, the last time, nobody had live sonar either, so this time that's going to be for sure. There's no doubt that that's going to be a big player there, because it's just, you can't miss with it. If they're there, you're going to see them, and a lot of guys could keep following around, and, they'll throw a Nico rig or something like that and get it down to them and take their time to actually catch them. So that'll be real interesting to see, how it plays out. But, that's why we all are fans. And I tell you, I'm a fan first, and we're fishing this week as well, but we'll definitely be paying attention to what's going on. I've got a lot of my buddies there, except yourself, that hoping that, it's a really good week for our team.
Yeah, I think it will be. I probably would like to trade the conditions that you have at Smith this week for the conditions that we have here at Hartwell.
We got plenty of water and plenty of mud for sure. Yeah. And it should still be pretty good. It's changing really fast. I didn't have a great day today in practice, but I saw some things that I liked, and I just tried to get a good feel for what the lake is. We only get 2 days of practice, so I got another full day tomorrow. I got a good game plan for it, and with the sun shining and the weather warming, it's got to, these fish that live out in the middle, when it gets dirty like that, they should come to the shore.
Yeah, that's kind of the same deal that we're going to run into, is that our official day of practice is Wednesday, and I honestly think that's going to be the most important practice day we've had yet. So we practiced last Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and again, we had totally different weather conditions. But Wednesday is actually going to be more kind of what we're going to have during the tournament. And again, we're living in changing times, in that we're that time of the year when a lot of fish want to come shallow. And I feel like the way things are setting up here, that there will be a big push of fish that are coming to the bank. And, these are deep fish also, much like Smith, in that these fish live 40 to 60 foot of water all winter long. But it is that time of the year that I feel like the largemouth will be the first ones to come. A lot of those spots will still be caught deep, even with the conditions that we're having. They just seem to live deeper and stay out there longer. But I do feel like there's a big push of largemouth coming. I think it'll be an exciting tournament. I have no idea how I'll do. I just know I'll be in a good area of the lake, that I'm sure of.
Yeah, yeah, it's the same thing here as there is. It's like, what do you focus on, the spots or the largemouth? And it's always based on the conditions and how things set up. And we're in between moons. We had a full moon when we were at Lake Fork last week, and gosh, man, it's so that moon is so important this time of year. I mean, those fish want to be, even though they weren't going to spawn. I mean, that moon had such an effect to pull those, to bring them into those shallows. And you could tell by the mood of them, the way they were biting, that they were thinking about spawning, even though it's, the water was too cold and it's a month before. So, you're kind of in between some, those largemouth hopefully will be focused on it.
We lost him. He's back.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah.
There he is.
He's back again. Greg, I got a question for you.
Okay.
When it comes to pre-spawn, or you're just talking about if, the fish are trying to come up shallow or trying to come up and spawn, is there a difference in your approach to standing timber, flipping shallow cover when they're just trying to come up versus when that, the spawn is in full swing?
Typically the good thing about when fish first come, like, to me, the easiest fish to catch is the fish that lives offshore that comes to the bank. The fish that's already up on the bank, that's resident, that lives there, is just a lot more accustomed to boats and getting fished for more often. So my favorite time to fish is when those fish pre-spawn, when they first come up. They seem to be really aggressive when they get there. They're kind of out of their element. And then you can just be a lot more aggressive when they first come up.
So what are you throwing? What kind of jig?
That just depends on the watercolor. Like here, for say, the water's a lot cleaner. I typically go heavier. Even with the water cooler, I like the heavier weight to clear the water. It gives them less chance to look at it. Because think about this, like people think, well, the water is low 50s or whatever, you should use a slow falling lure. Well, but yet when you throw a lipless crankbait out there, a red eye shad, it's moving fast when it comes back. It's basically that same principle. Whether you're cranking a crankbait or whatever, clear water, you crank the plug faster. Same deal is when you're, using a bottom bait. I like it's either, it seems like either no weight at all or a heavy weight that blows past them, and you just get that reaction bite. So, typically if the water's clear, I go with a heavier weight when I'm flipping and pitching, regardless of water temperature.
Well, and obviously, fishing a jig, flipping, pitching, it's a slower approach. So if you're trying to figure out a new body of water, are you using a swim jig to kind of identify areas where fish are located, or are you just pulling out the flipping pitching gear kind of right off the bat?
It really depends on the cover. If you go to a situation where you think fish are on the bottom in heavy cover, well, of course, you'll flip to them. But if it's more of a sparser cover deal and cleaner water, where you think the fish, where the line of sight is good, and you think the fish get I would prefer the swim jig so I can cover more water. It just, each situation is different. It depends on the lake. Probably a swim jig, honestly, is my favorite bait to fish pre-spawn and even early parts of the spawn for covering water. And fish, when they get in that mood, they want to chase something. And a swim jig is just hard to beat. It's so efficient. You can cover so much water with it. It catches quality fish. It's hard to beat, But again, no two situations are the same. So I can't say that, well, I always use a swim jig or I always use a flipping jig. It just kind of varies with the cover. The heavier the cover, typically you fish in it, and the sparser the cover, you fish around it.
Yeah. The one thing that, a lot of, fishermen, I think, make a mistake of is they don't have many heavy jigs in their box. I know, like yourself, a 3/4 ounce jig is a common size to throw, and a 1 ounce jig, I mean, you need that fast fall in a lot of situations. And boy, there's a lot of people that don't even have a 1 ounce jig in their box. And then not only that, but you're going to put the right trailer on the jig to match that presentation as well too. So tell me a little bit about what your favorite jig trailers are.
So number one would be a rage crawl. I probably use a rage crawl on a swim jig and a flipping jig 90% of the time. And then probably second to that would be a KVD chunk. And that's typically when the water's a lot colder. I want a big profile, but I don't want much action. But anytime, say, the water's 50 or more, I typically always use a rage crawl. I just find that I get more jig bites with a rage crawl than any other trailer I've ever used. Now, I like on a swimming jig, it's about the same. A rage crawl, a menace grub, or a rage swimmer. Those are the only 3 trailers I use on a swimming jig. And it doesn't, like if I'm using a structure jig and fishing out deep, it's still kind of depending on the fish and the profile. Rage crawl is just hard to beat. Like if I could only have one jig trailer, it would have to be a rage crawl. It is by far the best jig trailer I've ever used.
Yeah, it displaces so much water, I mean, on a swim jig in the dirtiest water. I mean, it helps them find it. I'm with you on that. It's a bad unit for sure. So, well, I know you're pretty fired up for this week there. We want to definitely wish you, the best of luck down there for sure. And we'll be watching, see what's going on. Rest of our guys as well. I've got quite a few friends in this one this year and Hartwell's a place that I'd like to be fishing, but this Smith Lake is just kind of the same thing. I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how it all pans out, this week with the conditions that we've got. That's what the name of the game is always, is adapting to whatever the conditions that you have. And you just got to make the most of it. So hopefully you can make it work.
Yep. Yeah. You too, Kevin. It's going to be a good week for both of us. I feel it.
There you go. We lost Tom.
Kevin, I was going to say, I feel like you're trying to rush us here a little bit. You got somewhere to be?
Yeah, I still got to go to dinner and get to sleep. No, we got an hour, man.
So I got one question to ask Kevin. Like, so you're at a rent house, right? Like a place where y'all rented to stay for the tournament?
Yeah.
Is it mandatory that they have a Kevin VanDam poster hanging on the wall wherever you stay?
It's the King of Bass backdrop.
Oh,
dude.
okay. I just checking. I was like, how about that? He rents a house. They already got his poster on behind him.
Where's your poster at behind you, man? Yeah. Where's the Hack Attack poster? Brandon let you down, man. You should have had.
I'm not quite reached that level yet.
Well, we're just, it's all about branding, man. It's, it's the show.
Yeah, it's the show.
So now we got a house here right on the lake, and the way the schedule worked out, and it will be that way this year for King of Bass Live throughout the season, that there's going to be times when I'm not going to be at home, and we're going to just have to do it this way. So you make the most of it.
I like the touch. It looks like you're at home.
Well, it's not quite like my shop. I can tell you this chair's not near as comfortable, but
I got another question for you. I listened to some of the when you and Cole were on there, and you were talking about your setup at Lake Fork. Which rod were you cranking the square bill on?
I was throwing my 7-foot medium, the CC2. That's my favorite cranking rod. I mixed that with my Signature Series 7-footer. They're really similar actions. The Signature Series has that wind grip on it. They're both really, really good rods. That's my favorite all around cranking rod. When you're target fishing like that, throwing it and still need to make a long cast. I've made a lot of money with that rod. So
yeah, I was just curious. I wasn't sure which model it was.
Yeah, no, I throw that 7 and that 7.4 an awful lot. If I'm throwing a red eye and stuff like that, where I need a little more sweep to it, you want a little longer rod, for ripping out of grass and things like that. I'll sometimes switch to that. But if I've got to be accurate, but I still need to throw some distance, that 7-foot medium is just, to me, that's my go-to for sure.
Did you throw a red eye any at Lake Fork?
I did a little bit in practice, but there's so much wood laying on the bottom there around the timber. The lake was 6 feet low, and it made it just fantastic because you could really read the timber and you could see. And then the other thing, the Lake Master mapping there is so good. And with the offset, the map was accurate for that water level. And those fish were really focused on any irregularity in bottom, channel swing or a little depression, a little hole, anything like that. And then if you could find, a top or a stump laying on that little curve or whatever, they'd really be set up there. I caught them on a spinnerbait in practice a little bit, but I ended up, that crankbait was just so efficient for covering that water and being able to work it through all that wood. It was a little too dirty for a jerkbait, and I was hanging up a little too much. And, a square bill and a chick magnet were, basically what I caught. I did catch one on a jig in the knockout round, but, just it wasn't happening for me. And I kept pitching around. I was seeing some on my Mega Live and just not being able to make them bite. But, you never know exactly what they are. There's 3-pound crappie there. So they kind of look like a bass when they're set up by a tree as well. But I just couldn't get the flipping deal going. And most of the guys caught them either on a jerkbait or a crankbait there.
Yeah, I got to watch. Yeah, y'all were around some big ones. Yeah.
Oh, it's the best big bass lake. You guys are going there at a pretty good time of year. You'll have some huge numbers, but the size of the fish was what was so impressive. There is the shape of them. I mean, they're just bellies were this big around, and they're wintertime and it's been cold and they've been feeding up, and they definitely want to be shallow. I mean, the next couple of weeks there at Lake Fork would be, if somebody was planning on taking a trip someplace to catch some big ones, that'd be a kind of the top of the list right now. So.
All right, Greg. So we were talking about Signature Series rods. You have your own line of Signature Series rods. What goes into the perfect jig rod? What are the key components that are in that Signature Series?
Basically the 2 jig rods I have in the Signature line, I have a 7.6, which is kind of my everyday all-purpose. I mean, pitching plastic, pitching jigs. It's really that everyday rod. I cast a jig out deep with it, a big worm. The main thing is having a rod that's balanced, having a rod that the rod is the right length, the handle length is the right length for accurate casting and pitching and flipping. The 711 rod in that line is more of when I'm fishing straight up and down, pitching to something and fishing the bait, not fishing the bait back to you a lot, but just target fishing, pitching holes, punching mats, straight up and down. And it's more of a target rod, where that 7.6 is, again, is an all-purpose. It's my everyday rod. I use 16 and 20-pound fluorocarbon on it, and I can use braid on it also. It's just every day. I use it all the time. More sparser cover, pitching boat docks, that type of deal. But the main thing is like that. I will tell you, both of those rods are perfect in the way they're designed, because they're just perfectly balanced. And again, it's a fine line when you have a rod that long that everything matches. Because so many times you'll pick up a big rod like that, and it feels like a big rod, and that is not what you want. So when you and especially the 7.6, when you pick up the 7.6 rod in the Signature line, it feels like it's 7 foot long. That's the way it should feel. It doesn't feel like an overpowering giant 7'6" rod. It's perfect. It's perfect for everybody. And it's almost like the same way of when you pick up the 711, it feels like a 7.6, because it's perfect. Everything about it's perfect, from the rod length. They are both made for very, very accurate fishing. Yeah, they're big rods, but one thing about fishing that way, when you're fishing shallow and you're flipping bushes, trees, cypress trees, boat docks, whatever it is, pitching and flipping is what gets the bites is the way you presented the lure. That's the most important thing when pitching and flipping. That's what gets bites fishing that way. It's how you present the lure, and those rods are just designed to present the lure perfectly. And they're sensitive, and they have a wind grip. They're strong. They'll take abuse, but the main thing, they're precise rods to fish with.
Yeah, Greg and I spent a lot of time on the phone with the engineers at Lewis, and we talked back and forth a bunch and designing, the whole series of rods. He asked me a lot about cranking rods. I've asked him, I'm telling you, what I've got for flipping and pitching in my boat, I've got Hackney's rods. So they do have that. The word he used was balance. They have a great balance to them. We have the same. Beliefs and handle lengths and stuff like that too. Greg and I both like the same types length of handles on our rods. You don't want that rod to feel like it's huge out there in front of you, and that's what exact way to explain it. And I did the same in my rods. Is they don't feel like they're as big as they are. They feel shorter. It feels like a more maneuverable rod than what it is. And that's what's going to make you a better fisherman, be more accurate. If you make a better presentation, that's how you're going to get a lot more bites.
Exactly.
Well, and somebody's going to get one of those tonight for free through the giveaway, the 7.6. So we'll do the giveaways here in a second. One question here for you, Greg, before you go. If you could pick one lake this time of year that you've got to fish for the rest of your life, what is that lake and why?
Oh, wow.
It's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, we hit everybody with this question.
So the week after this week, I'm going to Santee Cooper, and that would be a hard place for me not to. It would rank right up there at the top of the list for this time of the year. Big giant fish on cypress trees. I don't know if it gets any better than that.
All right. So
That's
adding you to my fantasy team for that one for sure. All right. Well, Greg, really appreciate it. I know that you and Kevin got a tournament to think about, so we won't keep you any longer. And I really appreciate your time, and looking forward to seeing you here in a couple of days at the Classic.
Yep.
Good luck this week, man.
Yep. Good luck to you, Kevin. I'll see y'all.
See you, man.
All right, we did it, and we're 20 minutes under where we were at this point with episode 1. So you should be proud of me. But we got giveaways. We've actually selected the 2 winners here, and I'll pull this back up again. What's on the line is a Lewis Signature Series, the Hackney 7.6 pitching rod, and then also the second giveaway, the Strike King Mega Bait Bundle. So the winner of the first giveaway, this is for the Signature Series rod. I'm going to butcher this last name. Matt Yeisley. Yeisley, Yesley. You are the winner of the Hackney Signature Series rod. Congratulations. The second giveaway, it's about $200 worth of KVD and Hackney baits. That is Doug Lesman. Congratulations. I'm sure if we could bring you on right now, you'd probably be freaking out, but we're going to send that to you. So we're going to be reaching out to both of you guys here tonight. We're going to get your information, and we're going to get that over to you. So congratulations.
Yeah, Doug will be happy with that. That's a pretty cool gift pack there for sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, so Kevin, I don't know if we can go ahead and say when the next time we're going to do this is, but I think we're going to be getting together possibly in person, so not remote, at Red Crest in Tulsa.
Yeah, that'd be a good time. That's coming up here, less than 3 weeks away now, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, the 23rd through the 27th. So we're going to have to find some time either during practice or maybe even during the tournament.
Yeah, Grand Lake is, man, I've got a lot of history there. It's a pretty great time of the year. Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates, but it should set up to be really special.
Is it 1 or 2 wins that you have on Grand Lake?
I've got a couple there. None this exact time of year though. So I fished a couple classics there and was close, but couldn't quite get it. So you never know. Maybe this will be my year.
Maybe Red Crest is the one. So again, I will have you on my fantasy team on the Major League Fishing side. Not that I don't always have you on my fantasy team, Kevin.
Right. There you go. Good rebound.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I saved it. I saved it as best as I could.
You got a strong team to pick from. You know, just think about it. All the guys on the Strike King and Lou's team, a lot of really good fishermen out there on tour. So
I did pretty well at Fork. I did pretty well. I was really wanting you to make that that championship round because
not as bad as me.
Cost me.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it was killing me. You know, the having that day shortened, you know, definitely was so much of my week there was that last period, you know, leading into it. Just time of the day, even though it wasn't going to warm up, that time of the day is so critical in the afternoon to be in the right stuff. And, you know, timing's everything in fishing for sure in a lot of situations. So you have to adapt. You know, everybody had the same, you know, conditions to work with. So have to get them next time.
Absolutely. Well, Kevin, really appreciate you taking a little extra time here. We're 7 minutes over, and I know you got Smith Lake to break down tomorrow. So looking forward to watching you smash them out there, and we'll do it again here in about 4 weeks.
Yeah. So I think Wednesday's our first day here, so it'll be pretty interesting. Fans are going to get a whole lot of action this week again to be able to watch, you know, all the guys at Hartwell and to be able to watch, you know, the Bass Pro Tour here at Smith. This one is really going to be interesting to me as a fan to see how it changes and how it shakes out with the water level, because right now it's on the rise, but I got a feeling that as soon as they get it, you know, under control, it's going to start falling, and that's going to change things again. You know, falling water is one of the toughest things to deal with, you know, in a situation like this. So we'll see how it's all going to go. I'm going to be watching that lake level real close, and you know, hopefully we'll be there at the championship round this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great week, obviously, for a bass fishing fan and viewer. Not a great week for workplace productivity, I'm sure, for everybody watching tonight. But everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you next time on Kings of Bass Live.